You think the winter freeze kills the zombies. It doesn't. It just turns them into landmines hidden under the snow, waiting for you to step close enough to thaw them out with your body heat, just enough for a reflex grab. Welcome to the Anomaly archives. Subscribe if you'd rather be prepared than learn the hard way. Most people treat winter survival like a camping trip. That assumption is fatal. In a collapse scenario without a functional grid, the cold is an active predator. It hunts you through physics, not malice. It targets your caloric intake, your water supply, and your ability to remain hidden. You have a vision in your head of a cozy fire while the undead freeze outside. That vision is a trap. A chimney is a signal flare. Footprints in fresh powder are a map to your front door. And the silence of a snow-covered world means a single cough carries for a mile. We need to dismantle the fantasy of the winter break. The cold doesn't pause the threat, it changes the rules of engagement. If you don't adapt your systems for thermodynamics, acoustics, and calories, you will die before a single walker touches you. Let's start with the most dangerous instinct you have, the desire for open heat. You feel cold, so you build a fire. In a standard survival situation, this is correct. In a hostile evasion scenario, it is suicide. The instinct is to load up the wood stove or the fireplace. You want to heat the whole house. The reality is that heating 2,000 square feet of uninsulated drywall without central air requires a massive fuel load. That fuel load produces smoke. On a clear, cold day, a column of wood smoke is visible for miles against a grey sky. It smells like life. It tells every desperate person within walking distance that you have resources. The fix is the microclimate concept. You do not heat the house, you heat one room. Ideally, you don't even heat the room. You heat a tent inside the room. This is your heat cell. By setting up a 4-person camping tent inside your living room, you reduce the volume of air you need to control by 90%. Body heat alone can raise the temperature inside that tent by 10 to 15 degrees. If you add a small candle heater or a localized propane source, you can survive sub-zero nights without emitting a smoke signal that invites a raid. But heat is useless if you suffocate. This brings us to the next failure point: ventilation. The instinct is to seal every crack. You tape the windows and stuff towels under the doors. The reality is that you are building a carbon monoxide chamber. If you are burning anything, propane, wood, kerosene, inside a sealed environment, you are competing for oxygen. The silent killer isn't the zombie scratching at the door, it's the heater hissing in the corner. You need a fresh air intake. This creates a painful trade-off. You have to invite the cold in to keep the poison out. The competent survivor accepts this friction. You crack a window on the leeward side of the house. You verify airflow. You wake up every 2 hours to check your family's alertness, not because you're paranoid, but because lethargy is the first symptom of the gas that kills you. Even if you manage the heat, the cold attacks your perimeter. Let's talk about the physical security of a snowbound house. The instinct is to trust your fence. You built it 6 feet high. It held all summer. The reality is that drifting snow changes geometry. A 3-foot blizzard with wind drifts can turn a 6-foot fence into a 2-foot speed bump. The snow creates a ramp. Zombies that would normally bounce off your perimeter can now walk right over it. They stumble up the drift and fall into your yard. You have to clear the perimeter daily. This is calorie-intensive work. It exposes you to the eyes of the neighborhood. But the alternative is waking up to scratching on your siding because the barrier you trusted is buried under 3 tons of powder. You need a schedule. You clear the drifts at dawn when visibility is low but light is sufficient. You don't shovel the snow outward, you pull it inward or move it parallel to create a vertical cut. A snow wall is slippery and unstable, which actually helps you if you shape it right.
But moving that snow costs you something you can't replace easily: calories. The instinct is to eat the same rations you planned for summer. You calculated 2,000 calories a day. The reality is that shivering, trudging through snow, and the metabolic cost of staying warm burns nearly double that. If you stick to your spreadsheet, you are starving by day 10. The cold makes your body inefficient. You become sluggish. Your decision-making slows down. A sluggish mind makes a noise it shouldn't. You need fat. Carbohydrates burn fast like paper. Fat burns slow like a log. You need to prioritize heavy, oily foods for the winter months. If you are scavenging, you leave the pasta and take the oil. You leave the crackers and take the peanut butter. Your inventory management has to shift from volume to density. Speaking of scavenging, winter changes the loot table. The instinct is to go out when the weather breaks. The sun comes out, the storm passes, and you think it's time to move. The reality is that everyone else thinks the same thing. The nice days are the high traffic days. That is when the desperation moves. The competent move is during the weather. You move when it hurts. The wind hides your noise. The falling snow fills your tracks. The misery of the storm is your cloak. If you are comfortable, you are visible. If you are miserable, you are likely unseen. This is the protector's burden. You trudge through the sleet so you don't have to fight for your life in the sunshine.
But moving in winter brings us to the noise floor. The instinct is that snow muffles sound. This is true for distant background noise, but false for impact noise. The crunch of boots on crusty snow is distinct, rhythmic, and piercing. In a world without traffic or hum, that crunch sounds like a gunshot to a listener a block away. You cannot move silently on crusted snow. You have to change your timing. You move during ambient noise spikes, high wind gusts, shifting branches, or you alter your footwear. Wrapping boots in fabric can dampen the crunch, but it reduces traction. Every step is a calculation between slipping and screaming. And what about the threats, the zombies themselves? The instinct is to assume they freeze solid. You've seen the movies. The walker turns into a statue. The reality is likely messier. Yes, they might freeze, but where? They freeze in snowdrifts. They freeze in piles of leaves. They fall, get covered, and go dormant. They are not dead, they are paused. This turns every pile of snow into a potential proximity mine. You step on a drift to cross a yard, and a hand grabs your ankle, not because it woke up, but because your body heat thaws tissue just enough for a reflex grab. You are not fighting an army, you are navigating a minefield. You need a probe, a simple ski pole or a sharpened dowel. You check the drift before you step. You never assume a mound is just a mound.
Now, consider your vehicle. The instinct is to treat your 4x4 truck as the ultimate winter asset. It has a heater, it has power, it can push through snow. The reality is that a vehicle in winter is a coffin. Roads are not plowed, they are sheets of black ice hidden under powder, blocked by abandoned cars that have frozen into steel barricades. If you slide into a ditch in sub-zero temperatures, you are not walking home, you are dying of exposure in a metal box. Furthermore, batteries die in the cold, chemical reactions slow down. Your starter motor demands more amps just as your battery can deliver fewer. Unless you have a heated garage or a solar trickle charger, that truck is a brick after 3 days of deep freeze. The fix is to downgrade your mobility. Sleds, snowshoes, cross-country skis, these are silent, they require no fuel, they don't get stuck in traffic. A plastic toboggan can haul 200 pounds of firewood or water with a fraction of the effort of a backpack. The father for this dragging a sled quietly through the backwoods survives. The father revving his engine trying to jump a curb gets eaten.
Let's talk about water. The instinct is to think water is everywhere because it's snowing. You just melt it, right? The reality is that melting snow is fuel expensive. It takes a massive amount of energy to phase shift water from solid to liquid. If you are using your precious propane to melt snow, you are burning your life support. Plus, snow is mostly air. You fill a pot with snow, melt it down, and you get an inch of water. 10 to 1. You are constantly tending the pot, wasting fuel, creating steam. The fix is to harvest ice or running water if possible. Ice has higher density. You get more water for the heat. If you must melt snow, you do it on the wood stove you're already running for heat. Or you use a passive solar melter, a black trash bag in the sun. Never waste high-grade fuel on water unless it is an emergency. There is a psychological layer to winter that kills families faster than the cold. Cabin fever. The instinct is to hunker down and do nothing. You preserve calories, you sit in the dark. The reality is that boredom eats sanity. In a small room, trapped with your family for weeks, small irritations become violent conflicts. The sound of someone chewing can start a fight. A fight breaks operational security. You need a routine. You need tasking. Even if the task is pointless, it must be done. Sharpening knives, counting inventory, mending gear. The brain needs a track to run on, or it will derail. As the leader, you assign the shifts. You create the structure. You are not just the provider of food, you are the architect of time.
Let's look at the infrastructure of your home again. Pipes. The instinct is to ignore them once the water stops flowing. The reality is that water trapped in your pipes will freeze and expand. It will burst the copper and PVC. This doesn't matter today, but if you ever get a localized system running again, or if the thaw comes, you will have a flooded house. A flooded house leads to black mold. Black mold leads to respiratory infection. In a world without antibiotics, a respiratory infection is a death sentence. The fix is to drain the system immediately. Open the lowest spigot in the house. Open the highest. Let gravity empty the lines. Put antifreeze in the P-traps of your toilets and sinks to stop sewer gas from backing up into your living space. Now, let's address the darkness. Winter means long nights, 16 hours of darkness in some places. The instinct is to use light, candles, lanterns, flashlights. The reality is that light discipline is the hardest thing to maintain when you are scared. A single candle in a window is visible for a mile. You need blackout curtains, but not just sheets. You need layers, cardboard, foil, fabric. You have to test it. Go outside your house at night. Walk 100 yards away. Look back. If you see a crack of light, you are dead. If you can see your house, so can the raiders who are freezing and looking for a victim. But total darkness inside is dangerous too. It breeds fear. It hides accidents. The fix is red light. Low-lumen red LEDs preserve your night vision and don't travel as far as white light. You live in the red. It feels like a submarine. It's oppressive, but it keeps you hidden.
What about clothing? The instinct is to wear everything you own. You layer up until you look like a marshmallow. The reality is that if you sweat, you die. Moisture is the conductor of cold. If your base layer gets wet from exertion, it will suck the heat out of your core the moment you stop moving. The rule is start cold. Before you go out to shovel or scavenge, strip off a layer. You should shiver slightly when you step out the door. As you work, your body heat will compensate. If you feel warm, you are wrong. You need to vent, unzip, regulate. You must treat your sweat like it is blood. If you are losing it, you are in danger. What about the defensive advantage of winter? It's not all bad news. The instinct is to feel vulnerable. The reality is that winter is a filter. It kills the incompetent. The gangs who rely on speed and aggression will stall out when their engines freeze. The walkers will slow down. The casual looters will stay inside. If you are prepared, winter is your ally. It clears the board. It gives you a season of relative peace, provided you have the logistics to endure it. The snow reveals tracks, which means you can see if anyone has been scouting you. If you check your perimeter and the snow is smooth, you know you are alone. That is a certainty you never get in the summer. But you have to read the snow correctly. The instinct is to walk the same path every day. You pack down a trail to the woodpile or the latrine. The reality is that a packed trail is a highway. It freezes into a hard, slippery, distinct line that points to your resources. The fix is to vary your approach if possible, or camouflage the entry points. Don't walk in a straight line from the road to your door. Hook around the back. Step through the brush. Don't make it easy for a stranger to visualize your routine just by looking at the ground. Finally, consider the thaw. The instinct is to celebrate when the temperature rises. Spring is coming. The reality is that the thaw is the most dangerous time. The zombies that were frozen in the drifts will become mobile again. The mud will trap your vehicle. The runoff will flood your basement. And the people who survived by the skin of their teeth will be desperate, angry, and out of food. They will come out of their holes looking for what you have saved. You don't relax when the snow melts. You double your guard. That is when the world wakes up hungry.
Let's review the system. You don't heat the house, you heat the tent. You don't seal the room, you manage the ventilation. You don't truss the fence, you clear the ramp. You don't rely on the truck, you use the sled. You don't burn calories, you hoard fat. You don't fight the cold, you respect the physics. It comes down to discipline. The cold doesn't care if you are a good person. It doesn't care if you love your kids. It only cares if you have insulation and BTUs. You are the thermostat for your family. If you panic, they freeze. If you act with manic energy, you burn out your food supply. You have to be the slow, steady burn. You are a cast iron stove that holds the heat all night. So here's the audit, right now, tonight. If the gas stops and the snow falls for 3 weeks straight, what is your heat cell? What is your ventilation plan? And where does tomorrow's water come from? Not vibes, not comfort, a system. Because winter doesn't reward bravery, it rewards preparation. And when the thaw hits, the world doesn't get kinder, it gets hungrier. If you want more collapse-grade systems built for fathers who can't afford mistakes, subscribe. I'll see you before the thaw.